Ah, look who's still standing. Look who's still here, still breathing, still moving through their world like a ghost they can't quite name. You know what happened, don't you? You know exactly what you did, even if you never said it out loud. You played the oldest game in the book and won without anyone noticing you were even playing. You hid everything, every calculation, every observation, every brilliant deduction behind the most powerful mask ever created. A blank face. And now they're finally starting to realize what stood in front of them all along. But here's the beautiful tragedy of it all. It's too late. Checkmate. Game over. They're just now seeing the board, while you've been 10 moves ahead for years. Let me take you back. Back to the beginning, when they first met you, when they saw that quiet demeanor, that unremarkable presence, that person who didn't demand attention, didn't fight for the spotlight, didn't need to prove anything to anyone. They looked at you and made their assessment in 3 seconds flat. They filed you away under safe, under manageable, under not a threat. And that right there was their first fatal mistake. Because what they mistook for simplicity was strategy. What they interpreted as passivity was patience. What they dismissed as lack of ambition was actually the absence of ego. You weren't trying to impress them, you were studying them. See, most people in this world, they play their cards face up. They announce their intelligence, their plans, their capabilities, like they're reading from a resume. They need everyone to know how smart they are, how talented, how special. But you understood something they never learned. The most powerful position is the one nobody sees coming. So you let them underestimate you. You let them make assumptions. You let them build their entire understanding of you on a foundation of their own arrogance. And while they were busy congratulating themselves on figuring you out, you were 3 chapters ahead, reading the end of their story before they'd finished the first page. Remember the meetings, the conversations, the moments when they spoke over you, dismissed your input, treated your silence as confirmation of irrelevance. You weren't offended, you weren't hurt, you were collecting data. Every time they underestimated you, they revealed something about themselves. Their blind spots, their insecurities, their patterns. You cataloged it all behind those calm eyes, that blank expression, that face that gave away nothing. They thought you weren't paying attention, but you were paying attention to everything. The micro-expressions, the inconsistencies between words and actions, the alliances forming and dissolving, the power structures, the fault lines. While they saw you as furniture, you were mapping the entire architecture of their world. And here's what's beautiful about playing dumb. People relax around you. They say things they shouldn't say. They reveal strategies they normally hide. They plot in front of you like you're not even there. Because in their minds, you're not smart enough to understand, not dangerous enough to matter, not relevant enough to guard against. So they handed you everything. Every secret, every weakness, every piece of ammunition you'd ever need. And you just smiled that small, unremarkable smile and filed it all away. You became the invisible observer in every room, the one nobody worried about, the one nobody prepared for, the ultimate underestimation. But let's talk about what was really happening behind that blank face. Because blank doesn't mean empty. Behind that calm exterior, your mind was running calculations at speeds they couldn't comprehend. You were playing chess while they were still learning checkers. Every conversation you had, you were running probability matrices. If I say this, they'll respond with that, which opens this door, which I can use 3 weeks from now. You weren't reacting to the present moment. You were engineering future outcomes. And the beautiful thing about being underestimated is nobody questions your moves, because they don't think you're making any. They saw someone quiet and missed the strategist. They saw someone agreeable and missed the analyst. They saw someone unambitious and missed the architect, building something they couldn't even conceptualize yet. You weren't climbing their ladder. You were constructing your own elevation system that operated on entirely different principles. And because they couldn't see it, they couldn't stop it. By the time they realized something was happening, you were already so far ahead. The game was essentially over. They were still arguing about the rules while you'd rewritten the entire framework. The thing about intelligence that most people don't understand is that real intelligence knows when to hide. Peacocking your brilliance is amateur hour. It's what insecure minds do when they need external validation for their internal worth. But you never needed their recognition. You never needed them to acknowledge your mind. Because acknowledgement creates resistance. Recognition breeds caution. If they knew what you were capable of, they would have guarded against you. They would have seen you coming. So you made a choice, a brilliant, devastating choice. You became invisible by becoming exactly what they expected. Nothing special, nothing threatening, nothing worth their concern. And in that invisibility, you became omnipotent. Years passed, they kept underestimating, kept dismissing, kept treating you like you were background noise in their symphony, and you let them. Because every day they underestimated you was another day you got to operate without resistance, another day to build, another day to position pieces on a board they didn't know existed. You weren't in a hurry. Rushed moves reveal too much. Impatience is the enemy of strategy. So you waited, you built, you prepared. While they were busy with their theatrics, their office politics, their desperate scrambles for validation, you were laying groundwork they couldn't see. And the whole time that face stayed blank. Now let's get to the moment when the mask stopped being necessary, when the blank face finally shifted, when they realized too late that they'd been played. Maybe it was a single decision you made that nobody saw coming. Maybe it was a conversation where you spoke with a precision that revealed you'd understood everything all along. Maybe it was a move so calculated, so perfectly timed, so devastatingly effective that the entire room went silent. Whatever it was, that was the moment their reality fractured, the moment they looked at you, really looked at you for the first time, and saw someone completely different than who they thought they knew. The confusion on their faces, the shock, the desperate retracing of every interaction, trying to figure out when they missed it. But here's the thing they didn't miss a moment. You showed them exactly what you wanted them to see. Every step of the way, the person they thought they knew, that was a character you wrote, a role you played, and you played it so well they never questioned it. Not once. They accepted your performance as reality because it confirmed their biases. It made them feel superior, feel smart, feel secure, and humans will always choose the interpretation that flatters them. So you let them feel superior, while you systematically dismantled every advantage they thought they had. Now they're scrambling, trying to understand how this happened, how the quiet one, how the unremarkable one, how the person they never worried about just executed something they can't counter. They're replaying every conversation, looking for clues, and they're finding them. Now, too late. All those moments they dismissed, all those comments they ignored, all those times they talked over you. They're seeing them differently now. They're realizing you weren't confused. You weren't struggling to keep up. You were letting them talk, letting them reveal themselves, using their own arrogance as a weapon against them. And that realization is destroying them from the inside. Because the thing that's eating them alive isn't that they lost. It's that they lost to someone they never respected. They got checkmated by someone they considered beneath them. And that breaks something fundamental in people like them. Their entire identity is built on being the smartest in the room, the most strategic, the most capable. And you just proved that wasn't true. You proved it without ever raising your voice, without ever making a scene, without ever playing their game. You created your own game, played by your own rules, and won so decisively, there's no path back for them. That's what makes it checkmate. Not just that they lost, but that they can't even see how to continue playing. Let's talk about what this kind of strategy requires. Because playing dumb isn't actually about being passive. It's about having such absolute control over yourself that you can suppress every instinct to be recognized. Think about how hard that is. You have brilliant insights, and you have to watch someone else get credit for a worse version of your idea. You see the solution to a problem, and you have to let them struggle with it. You know the answer, and you have to pretend you don't. That takes discipline most people don't have. That takes a level of emotional regulation that borders on supernatural. Most people can't do it. Their ego won't let them. They need the validation, they need the recognition, they need everyone to know they're smart. But you were willing to be misunderstood for years if it meant winning in the end. And that's the difference between tactics and strategy. Tactics are about winning the immediate moment. Strategy is about winning the war. Tactical players need to win every conversation. Strategic players let you win 1,000 conversations so they can win the one that matters. And you were always playing the long game. Every loss you took, that wasn't a loss. That was an investment. Every time you bit your tongue, that wasn't weakness. That was patience. Every moment you let them feel superior, that wasn't submission. That was strategy. You understood something fundamental. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. Sometimes winning looks like losing, until suddenly it doesn't. The blank face was your greatest weapon. Because humans are pattern recognition machines, we look for emotional signals to tell us what someone's thinking. Anger means threat. Fear means vulnerability. Excitement means investment. But a blank face, that gives us nothing. And when people get nothing, they fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. And their assumptions always favor themselves. They assumed your blankness meant emptiness. They assumed your calm meant contentment with less. They assumed your silence meant nothing to say. Every assumption they made was wrong. But they were so confident in their reading of you, they never questioned it. You became a mirror. They looked at you and saw what they wanted to see. And that blindness, that's what killed them. Now we arrive at the aftermath. The moment after checkmate, when they realize the game is over. This is the part nobody talks about. The psychological devastation of being outsmarted by someone you dismissed. It's not just losing. Losing to an equal, you can process that. Losing to someone you respected, that's acceptable. But losing to someone you never saw coming, someone you considered beneath you, that creates a kind of cognitive dissonance that can break people. Their entire self-concept was built on being the intelligent one, the strategic one, the one who saw things others missed. And you just proved that was a lie. You saw everything they missed. You thought circles around them while they thought they were lapping you. And they have to live with that now. Watch them now. Watch how they move around you. The new caution in their eyes, the way they measure their words, the way they second-guess every interaction. That's fear. That's what happens when someone realizes they never actually knew you. They're terrified because they don't know what else they got wrong. They don't know what else you're capable of. They don't know if this was your final move or your opening move. And that uncertainty, that's the most powerful position you can hold. Because now every move you make or don't make carries weight. Your silence means something. Your words mean something. Your blank face isn't blank anymore. Now it's inscrutable. Now it's terrifying, because they know something's behind it. They just don't know what. And here's the beautiful irony. Now that they know you're smart, they can't use you the way they used to. Now that they respect your mind, they have to include you. Now that they fear your capability, they have to accommodate you. Everything they denied you when they thought you were nothing, they're offering it now. But here's the thing, you don't need it anymore. You already built what you needed without their permission, their recognition now. It's not validation, it's confirmation. Confirmation that your strategy worked. That your patience paid off. That hiding your genius behind a blank face wasn't cowardice. It was the most sophisticated power play they'd ever witnessed. And they never saw it coming because they were too busy looking down on you to see you seeing through them. Some people ask if it's lonely playing this way, if it hurts to be misunderstood for so long. And maybe it does. Maybe there were moments when you wanted to break character. When you wanted to show them what you were really capable of. When you wanted the recognition, the acknowledgement, the respect. But you didn't break, because you understood something crucial. Temporary discomfort for long-term advantage. The loneliness of being underestimated was the price of being underestimated. And that price bought you something invaluable. Freedom. Freedom to move without scrutiny. Freedom to build without interference. Freedom to plan without resistance. They handed you that freedom by dismissing you. and you used it to build something they can't touch. Let me tell you what they're thinking right now. Right now, in this moment. They're running through every conversation you ever had, every meeting, every interaction. They're looking for the moment they should have seen it, the sign they missed, the clue they ignored, and they're finding them everywhere. That comment you made that they laughed at, that observation they dismissed, that question they thought was naive, it's all clicking now. Every single thing they interpreted as proof of your limitations, they're reinterpreting as proof of their blindness. And that reinterpretation is torture, because it means they weren't just wrong about you. They were comprehensively wrong about their own perceptiveness, their own intelligence, their own judgment. You didn't just beat them, you made them doubt themselves. And that's a wound that doesn't heal. The genius of playing dumb is that it's invisible until it's complete. There's no moment when someone can point and say, look, they're playing us, because every individual interaction seems innocent, seems genuine, seems unremarkable. It's only when you pull back and see the whole pattern that the truth becomes clear. And by the time the pattern is visible, by the time all those individual moves connect into a strategy, it's too late. The trap is already sprung. The pieces are already positioned. The game is already over. That's what checkmate means. Not that they lost this move, but that every future move also loses. You didn't just win. You eliminated the possibility of them winning. And they're only now realizing that the game was lost 5 moves ago, 10 moves ago, maybe from the very beginning. Now they're asking themselves the question that's keeping them up at night. What else did we miss? What else is this person capable of? What else have they been hiding? And the answer they're terrified to confront is everything. You've been hiding everything. Every insight, every capability, every layer of strategic thinking they couldn't dream of. The person they thought they knew, that wasn't even a fraction of who you are. That was a carefully constructed facade designed to keep them complacent. And it worked perfectly. You gave them exactly enough truth to seem authentic, exactly enough limitation to seem safe, exactly enough of what they expected to never trigger their suspicion. You played their biases like an instrument, and the symphony you created, it was their downfall. Here's what makes this different from typical strategy. Most strategic thinking is about acquiring advantage, resources, position, allies. But what you did, you made disadvantage into advantage. You weaponized their dismissal. You turned their disrespect into operational cover. You used their arrogance as a shield. Every negative assumption they made about you became a tool you could use. Because negative assumptions make people careless. They stop watching. They stop planning for contingencies. They stop seeing you as a variable in their calculations. And that's when you become the most dangerous. When they've written you off. When they've decided you're not worth the mental energy. That's when you have maximum freedom to act. And you exploited that freedom masterfully. Let's address the ethics question, because someone's going to ask it. Is it manipulative? Is it deceptive? Is it wrong to let people underestimate you? And here's the truth. You never lied. You never claimed to be less than you were. You just didn't correct their assumptions. Is it your responsibility to educate people who've already decided they know everything? Is it your job to prove yourself to people who aren't interested in seeing you clearly? No. They made their judgments. They drew their conclusions. Based on their biases, their prejudices, their need to feel superior. You just didn't fight them on it. You let them believe what they wanted to believe and used that belief to your advantage. That's not manipulation. That's understanding human nature. That's strategy. And now we come to the present moment. This moment right here. Where they're realizing but can't do anything about it. Where the truth is dawning but the damage is done. This is the moment you've been building toward. Not with malice, not with cruelty, but with precision. You didn't do this to hurt them. You did this because this is how the game is played. And you played it better than anyone they'd ever encountered. The blank face. The quiet demeanor. The unremarkable presence. It was all armor, all strategy, all brilliant. And now that armor comes off. Not because you need to prove anything, but because the game is won. Checkmate is called, and there's no point hiding genius when everyone can finally see it anyway. So what happens now? What happens after they realize? After the shock fades? After the reality sets in? Here's what happens. You continue, but differently. You don't go back to the blank face. That character served its purpose. Now you operate from a position of recognized capability, and that brings new challenges, new dynamics, new games to play. But you're not worried, because if you could win while pretending to be nothing, imagine what you'll do now that they know you're something. That's the next chapter, and they're terrified to see it. Because if this is what you accomplished while hiding, what will you accomplish when you stop hiding? That question. That's what keeps them up at night, and rightfully so. The blank face is gone, the mask is off, the genius is revealed, and they're standing there in checkmate, wondering how they missed it, how they got here, how someone they never respected just dismantled everything they built. And you're just getting started. Because this wasn't the end game. This was the opening. You let them think they had you figured out so you could figure them out. You let them think they were in control so you could take control. You let them think they were winning so you could win. And now they finally see you. Really see you. And that sight, that's the last thing they wanted. Because now they know the person they dismissed, the person they underestimated, the person they never worried about. That person just rewrote the rules, changed the game, and won so completely there's no coming back from it. Welcome to Checkmate. Population them. You've been living in victory for a while now. They're just catching up, and watching them realize, watching that moment of comprehension dawn across their faces, that might be sweeter than the victory itself. Because you didn't just win, you won their way, by their rules, in their game, and you did it by being exactly what they never expected: patient, strategic, and about 10 times smarter than they ever gave you credit for. The blank face was the setup. The checkmate was inevitable. They just didn't know it yet. But you did. You always did. And that's the difference between someone who plays dumb and someone who actually is. You always knew exactly what you were doing. They're only just beginning to understand. And by the time they do, you'll already be 5 moves ahead of where they think you are. Again, because some things never change. You just stopped hiding it, and that's their worst nightmare come true.